Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news as United get a big boost around who their manager could be this summer. They want Enrique and there is encouraging news around that. Also, if you're interested in Maresca, that could be an option for United. We know the connection between Barada and Wilcox and Maresca, and Man United overnight have appointed somebody from Man City. Job for the boys does happen with Maresca and Wilcox, and they have brought somebody else in from the youth setup at Man City overnight. Also, Onana heading back to Man United. No one will pay the price. We'll talk about that. And an interesting piece around Anderson and Wharton and the barriers that Man United face if they don't pay up. Will they pay up? But this morning, I'm encouraged, I'm happy, I'm excited because we have some positive news around the manager situation. And I don't know how everybody else feels, but look, for me, it can't be Carrick. At the moment, it's ridiculous to give it to him. Maybe at the end of the season, something happens where that changes my mind, your minds, but it's ridiculous. Like, we're Manchester United. We need to be going for the very best. We're going to struggle with this ownership anyway, so get the best manager you can. And I have been feeling a little bit flat for the last few weeks in relation to the names that are constantly linked to us. De Zerbi, Glasner, they're not good enough. So what we've got, and I'll read it out to you here, is that Manchester United have set a deadline on when they want to appoint their next manager, and several senior officials want that person to be Luis Enrique, according to the Manchester Evening News. According to a report in the Manchester Evening News, Man United have made the internal decision that they want a new manager in before the World Cup kicks off on June the 11th. And it's understood that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the Glazer family have agreed on the internal deadline to have everything done. And it's believed that the process will begin before the season is completed to ensure that deadline is met. And that Luis Enrique, several senior officials at the club want to bring in the PSG boss, Luis Enrique, as they look to appoint the best in class. And they feel he'll be more inclined to sign a new, but they feel he may be more inclined to sign a new contract with the current European champions. His current deal expires in 2027. But I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. I think that, look, we speak badly about the ownership at Man United because they're not very good. But ultimately, there is nobody in that football club that's not going to want Luis Enrique. Whether you think Wilcox is crap at his job, or Sir Jim, or Joel Glazer, or whatever, they're not going to not want someone like Luis Enrique, because that's like someone knocking on your door and saying, "See, you've got a Vauxhall Astra driven on your drive. Do you want a Ferrari?" They're going to say yes, 100%. It's whether Luis Enrique wants to say yes to Manchester United. Now, they lost again last night. PSG this season are struggling, and he's only got 1 year left on his contract. And what you're basically up against is he going to sign a new contract at PSG, or is he looking for a job like Manchester United? And that's the gap in the market that you have to exploit. That's what being best in class is all about. Because we can't just sit here, and there's people in the chat already doing it. Oh, he's going to stay at PSG and sign a new contract. Thomas Tuchel signing a new contract at England, Ancelotti signing a new contract at Brazil, and PSG getting Enrique to sign a new contract is utterly embarrassing for a club like Manchester United. Like, I get why they do it. I get why they'd look at the club and go, no way. But that ultimately reflects incredibly badly on the board that these top managers would rather sign contracts where they are than come to the great Manchester United. That doesn't reflect badly on the fan base. That reflects badly on the ownership, that these managers go, nah. Because there's nothing not attractive about Man United, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Liverpool when they're on their arse. You can't just say, well, I wouldn't go to Man United because they're struggling. That's not the reason. Like, Barcelona struggling is still Barcelona. Man United struggling is still Man United. If people are saying no, people need to wake up to the fact that they're saying no because of the way the club is being run. And as fans, that's not acceptable. And as owners, it's unacceptable as well. So with Luis Enrique, it's very, very clear that the club would like to appoint him. It's very, very clear he only has a year left on his contract. And it's very, very clear that PSG are trying to get him to sign a new one. That's a gap in the market. If he says, I'm not signing a new contract, he's out of contract in a year. No manager goes into their last year, so he leaves in the summer. United need to be all over this. And to get best in class, you will see the return. I mean, imagine next season, Luis Enrique at Man United in the Champions League as well. Like, I think you go from a shot in the dark with Carrick and De Zerbi and whoever else to genuine excitement, aura and belief. And patience as well. I think the thing that Luis Enrique has done, I mean, I don't need to sell Luis Enrique to anybody, but he plays fantastic football with wingers. He develops youth. He brings in the right players. And I think, there would be, and he plays a back four, but there would be, and he plays with good fullbacks. And he plays with a strong midfield. I mean, he literally is the identikit manager for Manchester United. And he's managed big clubs. He's managed Barcelona. He's the perfect manager for Manchester United. Fullbacks we need. Midfield we need. Wing play we need. He's managed big clubs. He plays good football. Tick, 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 tick. And also you would get patience. You'd get aura. The press wouldn't go, who's this foreign hipster? They'd be like, oh, thank you for coming to the Premier League. The press would love him. The fans would love him. There would be patience. And we'd be able to focus on what we really need to do. And there is a gap in the market, and you can talk to him, you can get at him, and you can sell the project. And if Man United feebly sit back and go, well, we can't do anything, then that tells you everything about this football club. If we're really going to go, oh, we can't do anything about Enrique, let's have a chat with De Zerbi, or let's give it to Carrick, that's abysmal. This is on a plate to go and do this deal. You've got to convince him to do it. And look, you look at the PSG. I watched the highlights of the PSG game last night. More importantly, just to take a look at Luis Enrique, he looks tired. My biggest concern would be, does he want a year out? That I wouldn't be worried about PSG trying to get him to sign a new contract. I reckon we've got a chance. My issue would be, does he want a year out of football? Because he looks absolutely exhausted. And that PSG project looks like it's coming to an end, in the sense that it was brilliant what they did. However, to keep going, I mean, they've basically played football non-stop for 18 months. And look, they've got. I feel like PSG not having a particularly good Champions League run could play into our hands as well. So look, I think it's clearly going to be a guy that United want in the boardroom. I think most of our fans would want him. I think he's gettable. I think if you don't get Luis Enrique, the statement I would say is it shows you exactly the vision of this football club. Because if they can't convince Luis Enrique, they've got no vision. If you can't get a manager like that who fits as like a glove, fullbacks, wing play, midfield, development of youth, style of play, exactly what Man United need, and experienced. Basically the next Pep. Could be at Man United this summer. And if we can't convince him, that doesn't reflect on me, it doesn't reflect on you, it doesn't reflect on Man United, that reflects on the board's vision. If they can't convince that guy to take this job, then it shows exactly what the issues are at this club, and I think we'll be in terminal decline for a very long time. Also, just to talk about managers, people are saying, what's this Enzo Maresca? You might have seen Pep Guardiola's comments ahead of the game they're playing tonight in the FA Cup against Newcastle, basically talking about how they'll be a better team next season. This season is about, people getting used to the Premier League, like Donnarumma and Cherki and Semenyo and Guehi and some of their other signings. Absolutely true. It is a bit of a transitional season for City, and yet they're still in a title race. Talking about next season and how they'll be a much better team, how he wants Cherki to play higher up the pitch. That could be spin and PR from Pep. It could also be Pep staying at Man City next season. Now, if he stays at Man City, the nailed-on manager that they're getting is Maresca, is available, and Man United need a manager. And Barada and Wilcox know Maresca. So, does he now become... I think almost in the last 24 hours... and I would say I'm happy about this, we've gone from, if it's not Carrick, it's De Zerbi or Glasner, to, if it's not Carrick, it could be Enrique or Maresca, which is, they're better names. Obviously, I like Nagelsmann. I keep Nagelsmann in there. I just don't know that... I worry about Nagelsmann because I do believe that Man United want a manager appointed by June the 10th, and I don't think you can appoint Nagelsmann before June the 10th because... he's going to be managing Germany, and I don't think Germany or German people or the German FA would like their national team manager to go into a World Cup saying he's leaving afterwards to go to Man United. So I think Nagelsmann may be out because he's managing Germany, which is wrong, but I think he may be out. Whereas Enrique and Maresca aren't managing national teams and could take the job on June the 10th. So I think that Maresca is... maybe Pep's playing games. Maybe Pep is still leaving. But if he's not leaving, then Maresca is available, and we have very good connections between the Maresca and Berardi and Wilcox. Also, just overnight as well, you may have seen this coming in. Where was it? Let me get the exact name of this because I've never heard of him in my life. Darren Hughes has been appointed Head of Academy Football Development and Methodology at Manchester United, reporting into the club. Hughes arrives after nearly 12 years at Manchester City, when he mostly served as Head of Coaching and previously spent years at Liverpool. It's another job for the boys. It's another... I mean, the Wilcox-Berardi trick seems to be anything connected with Man City. I mean, that just seems to be all they do. So we've just brought in another person from Man City to be Head of Academy Football Development. Jobs for the boys is a real thing at Manchester United, and maybe Maresca sort of fits in with that. So look, I wouldn't be getting your knickers in a twist or your pants around Maresca. But if it's good enough for City, it might be good enough for Man United, and he will be available. And if he is available and he's not going to Man City, I would not be surprised if Berardi and Wilcox are going to Sir Jim Ratcliffe. This is the guy. This is the guy. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens on that. But look, I'm encouraged by the Enrique story. It's not easy, but we're Manchester United. And if you gave me Enrique in the summer, I think you would see a very, very excited, positive fan base. I would be very excited and very positive. This, for me, would be like bringing Mourinho in. It would, and that was incredible. I mean, you look at Man United's share price over the last 10 years, and you can see the rises, right? One of those rises was Mourinho. The share price went through the bloody roof when we appointed Mourinho. So I'm not saying that's a reason to pick Enrique, but I think it would be a huge statement of a club. But look, I do agree with Daz, who says you're having a laugh if you think he's coming under Wilcox, which is why Wilcox should be sacked. But if we're recruiting somebody from Man City, Wilcox ain't going anywhere, is he? The Wilcox-Berardi jobs for the boys club ain't going anywhere. But, you know, that again, if we appoint crap in the summer in relation to the manager and it goes wrong, it's on Sir Jim, it's on Joel Glazer, it's on Wilcox, it's on Berardi. That won't surprise me because I think they're all rubbish at their job. What I'm saying is dangling the carrot of optimism and progress and, you know, best in class. There are options out there. If they ignore them to do what their old shit judgment again, it won't surprise me, it won't surprise you. Of course I expect it to be Carrick or De Zerbi or Glasner or someone like that. I totally expect it to be somebody like that. But it could be Nagelsmann. It could be Enrique. They are gettable. They are best in class. But if United look the other way and go for something else, it wouldn't surprise me. Mark is number one talking about Enrique. Inzaghi's done a great job at Inter Milan. We won't be going for a manager like that, Jason, whether it's the Stuttgart manager or Inzaghi. We just won't do something like that. The reason they'd go for someone like Nagelsmann or Enrique or Tuchel is because they actually have pedigree that makes them... I think the problem with Ten Hag and Amorim was that they were good coaches, but the press disrespected them. They want to... The British press want to be wined and dined and respected. And I think Ten Hag and Amorim came in and were like, well, I'm here to do a job. And they disliked them. Whereas I think with Enrique and everything like that, they'd be in awe of them. And that's the sort of manager Man United need. Enrique would require funds, ambition and daring, says United 777. Yeah, but the money is there. Like, whoever comes in, they need money. Even if you give the job to De Zerbi, he needs £200 to £300 million. I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, we need fullbacks, we need winger, we need midfielders, and that's going to cost you £300 million straight away. And we won't get all those things, but we do need those things at Manchester United, 100%. Keep up the good work and go Man United, says Owen. If it's Enrique, can he make transfer decisions, says Amit. Well, 100%. You bring a manager in like that, it's a positive to have him involved. He rebuilds teams, also took PSG from a team full of egos, removing them and buying players who had a good ceiling and making them world class, says Ewan. And also, Enrique for Mainoo is going to be huge. Enrique for Euro and Heaven and, you know, and Sesko is going to be huge. Bruno will stay. So it's not just about recruitment and sales. It's about the talent we want to build with. He would be incredible. I think he is easily top 3 manager in the world. And if they recruit someone like that, nobody could moan about it. They won't do it, but that is doable. And you know what? If there's one thing this morning I'll take away positive, it's the fact that they could do this deal. They could go all out and get this deal done. And we could have Luis Enrique as Man United manager. And that makes me feel very positive. If we end up with something that I'm like going, fucking hell, this ain't going to work, well, that just reflects on the people in charge. And I think, you know, for the last couple of weeks, it's felt like Carrick, De Zerbi or Glasner. And we've been sold that bullshit. And the reality is we shouldn't have to accept for that. There are better options out there. And the club are responsible for that. We shouldn't have to settle because they're bad at their job. There are opportunities. There are good options out there. There are exciting options. And look, you give the job to De Zerbi, right? Next summer, this summer, next season, there's a massive sense of uncertainty. There's a massive sense of when's this going to go wrong. You give the job to Carrick. I think there is excitement, but there's also a massive fear that this is going to go wrong like it did under Ollie. You give it to Enrique, I don't think there's a massive fear. I don't think there's massive uncertainty. I think there's like, you know, it could go wrong, but this is really exciting. My red lines are off. Yeah, I probably clicked the wrong thing here, which is what I do quite a lot. There we go. Is Cunha and Mbeumo an upgrade? Rashford and Garnacho had great periods. Cunha and Mbeumo hasn't been close to that. Same problems with inconsistency. Marlo, you normally are very good at observations. I think that's probably your worst take of 2026. I think you should close your computer down or your phone, get some fresh air, get your coat on, go for a walk and think about what you've just said there. Because that, to me, is one of the worst takes of the year. And I wouldn't expect it from you. Are Cunha and Mbeumo an upgrade on Rashford and Garnacho? I mean, have you been hacked? That is absolutely a bit... Marlo, you are respected in this chat by me and everybody else. That is abysmal. I'm sorry, that is terrible. Is Cunha and Mbeumo an upgrade on Rashford and Garnacho? Garnacho's walking around in a Villa shirt playing absolute shite for the last 12 months and still playing shit for Chelsea. And Rashford... He's doing very well at Barcelona, but sat there when he was at United and said he wanted a new challenge, having spent the last few months. I mean, it was like he was trying to get his steps in. All he did is walk. So, no. I agree with you that Garnacho had great potential, and I agree with you that Rashford had great times. But right here, right now, in 2026, Cunha and Mbeumo are a massive upgrade on them. Rashford's had good years in the past and he's doing well at Barcelona, but in a United shirt it was over, and for Garnacho it never got going. Getting Enrique is not an issue, but with Wilcox's transfer policy he'll be pissed off. Wilcox has his own ideas and sometimes I feel he's ruining the club. Wilcox needs sacking, Arsenal, 8517. It's not easy to say that, and I'm not like doing an Instagram post about it because people will just say, oh, you can't do that. But the reality is Wilcox needs the sack, and I'm completely comfortable with that. I'd sit opposite and tell him that. I'm happy to do it if he wants me to do it, and I'll tell him why as well. He has massively failed, he is massively out of his depth, and he's learning on the job. That's not best in class, that's an amateur. If we sacked him and replaced him with a proper director of football, we would be a better football club for it. He's out of his depth. He just keeps recruiting people he used to work with. This is Manchester United Football Club, not jobs for the boys. He ain't good enough. So he shouldn't even be involved. The fact that he's going to pick the next manager is laughable. Absolutely laughable. Great manager, cannot compete in United. Why? Look at the board. They haven't backed Amorim, says Edgar. Ed Guns. Savage, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much for that. Enrique as manager and Vitinha in the midfield equals a dream. I mean, we won't do that, Ross. We won't be getting people like Vitinha, but we might get the next one. I don't think United are going to be in that stage of buying that quality of player, but we can get that quality of manager. Patrick Lynch says, I'd love Enrique, but I can't help being sceptical. Ten Hag and Amrin before United had reputations for developing players. That Ajax team under Erik Ten Hag was young. I just don't want to overhype up anything regarding this squad. Thank you very much, Patrick. And Mr. Saunders says, this is where the club confused me. They want positive PR from the fans, appoint Enrique, and it's an instant win, and the fans will be off your back for a bit. I mean, look, it's a great point. It's not one I would look to necessarily focus upon, because it's not necessarily, you know, the thing I think we should focus on. But you are right. If they appointed someone like Enrique or Nagelsmann in the summer, and you sell a kit that looks a little bit like one of those, you are going to get massive kit sales. You are going to get massive buzz around the club. You're going to get, you know, an increase in your share price, 100%. There is a lot of money to be made out of appointing someone like a Luis Enrique, 100%. But that's where I think the club is stupid sometimes. Like, they almost defy. I don't think I actually have a take. Like, we're a bad football club in the way that we're run, but I also think we're a bad business now. I don't think we're making good business decisions. I think that's a bit of a myth. I think everyone goes, oh, the Glazers are brilliant at business. I don't think they are. I think they make money because Man United make money. And there's probably a queue of sponsors in the past going, please, please, please. We already know there's not a queue of sponsors anymore. I don't think they are very good at business. I think we think they're good at business and they're bad at football. They're bad at football and they're bad at business. Good business would be to go and get a top-class manager. In many ways, you spend £30 million on a top-class manager. You don't need to spend £300 million on players, because you can live off the name of the manager in the first summer and not spend as much on players. If you bring in, when we brought Jose Mourinho in, obviously we brought Pogba and Zlatan and Mkhitaryan and Bailey, but it wasn't really the summer we needed. We needed more than that. But because we had Mourinho, it was like, wow, we've got Mourinho, you know? So it can mask the need to buy players as well in the first summer. Wilcox asking Enrique what his credentials are, says Keil. I know, we've got a complete and utter prat as a director of football, let's be honest. Amit says, get Enrique by June so transfers are done seamlessly. Look, one part of that story I was talking about at the start of the show, if you missed it, is that Man United officials want Enrique, and they also want to appoint the permanent manager by June the 10th. It's not the end of the world if we go and get Nagelsmann or Pochettino after the World Cup, because a lot of players are going to be playing in the World Cup, so pre-season this year doesn't matter. But the advantage is being able to work on transfers collectively. So I do like the idea of having a manager in by early June. However, you have to negate certain managers if you do that as well. Do you think Nico Williams at Forest can improve our left back, says RPG? No. Also played for Liverpool. So no, not for me. Another interesting story I wanted to talk to you about was, I mean, to be fair, it's coming in from that Luckhurst in the Sun, but to be honest with you, he is a bit of a, you know, club hack in the sense that, you know, he's a client journalist. So saying Manchester United have to qualify for the Champions League if they are to have any chance of signing Elliot Anderson or Adam Wharton. Anderson is of interest to United, but well-placed sources say they would not be able to compete with front-runners Man City on Anderson's salary unless they are back in the Champions League. Look, I don't dispute this story, because I think the club are starting to leak out now that they are going to struggle to sign Anderson. As we were discussing yesterday, Anderson served his purpose for Manchester United. You feed it out there to Ornstein and Romano and all the other journalists that Anderson's the number one priority. And, you know, we can bookmark that. We can go back and show you the screenshots of that. Anderson has been Man United's number one priority from September to the start of February. Conveniently, that distracts people from not buying a player in midfielder in last summer or this January's transfer window. But now we're approaching reality of where Anderson's going to go in the summer. United aren't saying he's number one priority anymore. They're talking about challenges. Now, you can wake up to that reality, or you can pretend it didn't happen. But I know it, you know it. There's been countless stories over the last 6 months about Elliot Anderson being Man United's #1 priority. And the closer we get to this summer transfer window, the more that story's changing to, we admire him, but it's a challenge. So he's gone from top priority to admired and a challenge. And that's happening more and more. So, look, I think Man United will qualify for the Champions League. So I don't really pay much attention to United need Champions League football if they want to buy Elliot Anderson or Adam Wharton, because I think we will get it. But even with it, words like Man City are front runners, deal almost done, willing to pay him £250,000 a week. I think it's over before it's if it was ever beginning. I think it's over, because I think even with Champions League football, we're not going to give him what Man City will offer. We've seen with Bruno Fernandes, you get what you pay for. I mean, I've got no intention of watching that Newcastle game back again, but it's incredible how badly we played, and yet Bruno Fernandes did create. I mean, they weren't all sitters, but he did create 5 chances in that game, and we pay him £300,000 a week. You get what you pay for. So, look, as far as I'm concerned, Elliot Anderson on £250,000 a week is absolutely fine if that's what Man City are offering, because that's what it's going to take to not have to walk away and say we tried. So, and also, like, the way he's played for Forest, and if Man City want him, there's a very big chance that he's going to. I mean, the worst thing will be seeing him playing the midfield for Man City next season and going, he is brilliant. And United going, wow, we didn't want to offer £250,000 a week. And I think we should. And I think we won't. And I think we're moving further and further away from that deal. But the interesting thing is, I don't think Adam Wharton contextually is going to be a lot cheaper than Elliot Anderson, and that's my concern about Wharton. I do like him. I think he's a decent player. But the gap between Elliot and Anderson and Wharton, to me, is Wharton here and Anderson there. But the price and wages is probably going to be like that. So we get somebody who's a little bit worse for the same amount of money, and I think United need to be very, very careful of that. Emmanuel says, what's your pick, Ndiaye or Diomande? Price dictates my pick, if I'm being completely honest, in the sense that I've just remembered, actually, I was meant to say at the start of the show I'm going to gift out some memberships this morning, so don't let me go without doing that. Price dictates it. If they're both £60 million, I'll go Diomande. If one is 90 million and one is 50 million, I would go with the cheaper option. I do feel like there is a little bit of a leap of faith with Diomande, in the sense that when it was Sesko or Watkins, how do you pronounce Ndiaye? Because we're never going to sign him. Devil's Pulse is taking the piss, and I don't know how to pronounce his name. And unfortunately, we do get people in our comments who, I can just imagine them walking around their kitchen kicking chairs over because I mispronounce names. But as I've said to you many, many times before, I grew up with a surname that nobody ever gets right, and I never got stressed about it. So I don't really care about how you pronounce somebody's name. I don't respect it. I'm not bothered about it. Nobody ever did it for me. I don't care. But if you want me to pronounce it properly, tell me how to pronounce it and I'll do it. But I couldn't give a shit about pronouncing somebody's name right or wrong. And I've had people say to me before, it's rude to say that my name's like that. And I said, well, tough shit. Not bothered. If Anderson, sorry, I was talking about something there anyway. I think I think with Ndiaye or Diomande, I would say that it's a little bit like Watkins or Sesko last summer. I did like Watkins, but I felt that Sesko I felt like Sesko was the right choice. And ultimately it looks like it is. NJ is how you pronounce his name. Ndiaye. Ndiaye. So, look, I think I'd probably go Diomande over the two, if I'm being completely honest. Yeah. Hi, Mark. I'm travelling to the UK from Malaysia on the week after next. Any chance could get a picture with you? Thanks. Probably no chance, Mr. Unless you're going to come down to Baller League, then you probably would get a picture at that. But Yeah, get yourself some tickets to Baller League every Monday. You probably get a tip. Probably get a picture with me there, to be fair. Amit says, if Anderson equals priority, why slack? Let's go all full send, says Amit. Good point. Thank you very much to Emmanuel as well. Okay, let me talk to you about the... what was it I was going to say? Oh, Onana. What was it about Onana? There was a story about Onana this morning in the Manchester Evening News. This is it. Manchester United have been informed that Trabzonspor are not willing to pay the club's valuation of £40 million for Cameroon goalkeeper Andre Onana this summer. I feel with Onana, right, there is a cold, hard reality to the Onana situation that we just need to relax about. And the sense I have is that, realistically, he's probably going to come back to Man United. I think Man United are doing what they normally do in the transfer window when it comes to sales. They're acting like Billy Big Bollocks. Like, can't you remember last summer when they were telling everybody that they were going to get a fee for Sancho? And every week I'd go, I can't understand how Man United think they're going to get a fee for Sancho when he's out of contract in a year. Why would he allow himself to go for a fee so that Man United can get money and then he's locked into another contract? But United kept putting it out there about, oh, we're going to get a fee for Sancho, we're going to get a fee for Sancho, we're going to get 40 million for Rashford. Sancho, we didn't get a fee for, and Rashford, we got nothing for. They just covered his wages. So, and also a 25 million pay in a year's time. So United do tend to start talking big bollocks stuff that turns out to be bollocks. With Onana, they have said, we're selling Onana, there's no way he's coming back. But they don't have any say in it. He's on 100 and something grand a week. And he's only been at the club for 3 years. He's still got a couple of years left on his deal. And no one's going to give him that wage and £40 million. So I'm quite relaxed about the Onana situation. He will not play in goal for Man United again. That won't happen. I completely agree with the club. They will not use Onana as a goalkeeper again. But he may well come back in the summer. And he may well be on whatever tour we go on. And he'll be smiling around. And he'll be walking into Carrington with his boot bag. And it'll be a bit frustrating. But we have seen it all before. He'll ultimately end up being frozen out and going on loan again. But nobody's going to pay money for him. And also, he's going to get a pay rise in the summer. Because his contract says, if we're in the Champions League, you get a 25% pay increase. So if he's on 100 grand a week, he's going to go to 125 grand a week just to turn up back at Carrington. And I would do that. I would do that. If after I've been on loan at Trabzonspor, they can't afford me, and all the offers on the table are crap, I have a holiday, I come back to Carrington in early July, I get a pay rise the minute I walk in, 125 grand a week, and I smile, and I walk into whoever the Wilcox's office is, and I say, I'm not taking a pay cut, I want to fight for my place. And then Wilcox says, well, we're not going to use you. So you say, well, I'm not taking a pay cut, so find me a club or loan me out and cover my wages. And that's what'll happen. I think he will end up being loaned out again because, again, we've put ourselves in a situation where we've got a crap player on stupid money that no one else will pay. And I think that's what'll happen with Onana. And I'm quite relaxed about it because, logically, there's nothing we can do about it. And logically, we're not selling a player on 125 grand a week for £30 million. It just won't happen. So, please watch Le Mans pronounce his name, Mark. Well, that's how you pronounce it, Hugh. If Anderson equals priority, why slack? I've done that from Amit. Formula One starts, apparently, says Grump. Goalkeeping coach is better than both Onana and Binder, says Mark Ash. Anderson should be our priority for the midfield, says Rockstar. And what about if he goes to Saudi? Well, look, Saudi could be an option, Goldberg. I think Saudi's become less of an option than it used to be. But it's always there. It's always on the horizon if they decide that that's the goalkeeper they want. And look, they took that goalkeeper, Mendy, from Chelsea, didn't they? And I don't think he was particularly good. And teams always need a goalkeeper. So maybe, you know, and Onana is the sort of personality that I think he'd do very well in Saudi, but I don't know that he wants to go there, and I don't know whether they want him. And maybe that would be a solution, and maybe that can happen. But yeah. Rez says, should we be more patient with Mainoo? Are we not being patient with Mainoo? I think that the issue that you have with Mainoo is that we have a very talented player that his best form was when he burst on the scene. His first 6 months in a Man United shirt was incredible, and it accumulated, and it ended up with him going and playing for England in the Euros. Ever since then, it's been a very bumpy ride with injuries and, you know, out of favour. He's now got somebody that, you know, is an arm round the shoulder manager. He probably needs a kick up the arse at the moment, to be honest. And look, as a father myself, you know, sometimes tough love is important, in the sense of, if they're not doing their homework, you don't just go, oh, let's sit down and watch, you know, Star Wars. It's like, you know, you do your homework. And I think that with regards to Mainoo, my honest assessment of Mainoo is, I think I can't unsee what I saw in that first 6 months. If I hadn't seen that, I'd be like, what's the big idea? But I've seen what he can be. And at 20 or 21, I don't see how that can't come back and be even better. I just think that having sat on his arse for 6 months, that's going to have a physical and mental effect. And now he's playing every minute, and that's going to have an effect as well. I think the balance that Man United have struck with Mainoo this season is appalling. Doesn't matter what you do, you're not in the team. Doesn't matter what you do, you are in the team. When actually, young players, when I think about the Gary Nevilles and the David Beckhams and the Paul Scholes and all the young players that have come through, there's always jeopardy. It's not, you know, Sir Alex Ferguson didn't say to David Beckham, you're playing every week, lad, on the right wing, doesn't matter what you do. It's like, you get 20 minutes here, show me what you can do. Right, you're starting against Preston, show what we can do. You know, with Mainoo at the moment, it's like he's had 6 months of you not in the team no matter what, and now it's you're in the team no matter what. And that doesn't help him development-wise. If you want to develop, you need jeopardy. You know, there needs to be a carrot to go and chase, and there also needs to be, you know, a punishment if you perform badly, in the sense that you're on the bench. And I think at the moment we've got the balance completely wrong. I don't blame Carrick for that. I blame Wilcox, because we didn't buy any more midfielders. So we have to pick Mainoo every week, no matter how he plays. We have to pick Casemiro every week, no matter how he plays, because we know with Ugarte isn't good enough. So it's a terrible look. I don't think Mainoo's good enough to go to the World Cup. I'd be stunned if Tuchel picks him in March. He might do. I mean, he might pick Mainoo and Shaw, which to me, I don't know what Man United he's been watching, but I think for Mainoo, the most important thing is probably not to go to the World Cup. The most important thing for Mainoo is to take this season, the ups and downs, learn from it, and then in the summer we need to buy players who are competing in that midfield. Hugh says, that's not how you pronounce it. Watch the 5-second video. I think I'll take my dog a walk, mate. I'm not that bothered. Is Luis Enrique spin, says Carl. No, to be honest with you, I think if there was somebody at Manchester United watching this video this morning and we're not in for Luis Enrique, I think they'd be twitching in a very bad way. I think the more we talk about Luis Enrique to Man United and why it should and could happen, the worse, the more pressure there is on the board if they don't do it. I don't think it's spin to say that we want Luis Enrique. I don't think it's spin that the club would put out, because it will make them look bad. Like, if you say we're signing Gareth Bale 10 years ago, that's spin, because there's absolutely no chance of it happening. But it's like, ooh, distract. But with Luis Enrique, there's absolutely every chance it can happen. And if you don't get Enrique, you get De Zerbi, that's shit. So we should be getting a Tuchel or an Enrique this summer. That's what best in class is. If we get a De Zerbi or give it to Carrick, that's not best in class. That reflects on the board. So I don't think they would spin it, if I'm being completely honest. Goldbridge says, appointing Enrique might be the difference between getting your first and fifth choice transfer targets in the summer. Would Elliot Anderson ever consider playing under De Zerbi over Pep? No. I think this is brilliant, Goldbridge. Look, for me, Enrique should get the job. Ticks absolutely every box, stylistically, development, aura. Press would like him, fans would love him, but also the attraction. It's very difficult to sell a project to Elliot Anderson if you give the job to De Zerbi or Michael Carrick, because it's a punt. It might work, we think it's going to work, but it might not, and then you've made a bad move. If you have Luis Enrique as the manager and you say to Elliot Anderson, we're going to be the biggest club in the world in 3 years, and you're going to be at the centre of that, and Luis Enrique sat there, you sort of like go, well, I definitely believe that more than I would if it was De Zerbi. And as I said, people like Bruno Fernandes are only going to go to Saudi. And you're never stopping him going to Saudi if he wants to go to Saudi. But I don't think Bruno does want to go to Saudi. I think Bruno wants to play somewhere where he can win the big prizes. And I don't think he really wants to leave Man United. I think he's just a realist who looks at it and goes, I can't have another project. But if that project is Luis Enrique, I think Bruno Fernandes goes, I'll come here. I also think Tonali, who wants to go back to Italy, and Man United want to sign him. I think if you speak to Tonali and say, we've got Luis Enrique here, he probably goes, Italy can wait. Whereas if you say to Tonali, we've got Michael Carrick here, he might go, I don't know, that's a leap of faith, So I think that you're absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. Let me just sort these memberships out that I said I was going to give. Let's do 10. There we go. Is it going to work? There we go. 10 memberships gifted. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you everybody for this morning. We have got an 8 o'clock show tonight because as much as I'm doing Wrexham against Chelsea FA Cup, but I'm not massively into the FA Cup until it gets to the latter stages. So I'm going to do Chelsea-Wrexham. I'm just interested to see how Wrexham do at Wrexham against Chelsea. And I'm hoping somebody puts Garnacho into the stands. And then at 8 o'clock, I'll just have Man City Newcastle on, and we'll have a Saturday Night Live, because I'd rather have a Saturday Night Live than sit and watch Man City beat Newcastle exclusively on That's Football. Take care, everyone. Of course, I do agree with what a lot of people are saying as well. It's disgusting that we're not in the FA Cup, but that's what happens when you sack a manager and don't have somebody lined up. We really should have had Carrick for that Brighton game, and we had Fletcher, didn't we? And that cost us the FA Cup. Take care, everyone. Stay safe, and I'll speak to you on the next one. Please do smash a like on the way out, and if you've got a membership, welcome to the Members Club. Thanks for getting your badge in. I'll speak to you all in a bit.